Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. Today, Jim and I have such a great conversation with Paul Allen of KFAN. You know him from not only Vikings, but also Canterbury. But we're going to get to know more of him. We're going to hear the stories, we're going to dig deep, and we're going to learn how to turn a phrase. So stick around.
All right, it is March Madness. We're talking here on Monday, right, the day after the bracket was released, day after the Big Ten tournament concluded in Minneapolis. So how much do you care about March Madness? Do you fill out brackets? Do you fill out 20 brackets? And I will start this conversation with one of my favorite anecdotes of all time, which is when I was a Twins beat writer in Fort Myers. And I used to talk with Kirby Puckett every morning. And one day he goes, Sue, man, I'm going to win the tournament this year. I'm going to win. I'm going to get the winning bracket. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? He said, I'm going to buy all the best teams. And he did. So, most people get in the bracket. They're like, okay, I hope I pick this team and it wins. And Kirby went around and bought like the 20 best teams in the 64 team field because he's just so desperate to win.
Wow. I don't know. How about you, PA? Do you do it?
I love the NCAA tournament. I love the conference tournaments that just concluded. Now, just due to ancillary things that I do outside of sports, I just don't have as much time to watch college football or basketball. As maybe doing a 9 to noon radio show at KFAN or just following sports, I wouldn't say would be required, but, would help amplify or enhance the conversation. I just don't follow it closely. So I then play catch up, and then I talk to people who know more about it than me. Mm-hmm. And, after the football seasons within the last couple of years, let's say Calvin Ridley and Jamison Williams had, well, of course I don't play brackets. I just play those free ones online where maybe you can win a ham sandwich or something. But so what I'll do is I'll just play catch up in very, very expedited fashion, put a couple of brackets together, see what happens.
And for me, it depends on how busy I am. If I'm just kind of zoned out, like too much sports, I sit back and I just enjoy it. But many years, I love filling out a bracket. This year, I have to take off my sports professional hat and my personal hat. So my nephew, not by blood, but best friends, my nephew is the starting point guard for UConn.
Oh, geez.
So
what?
Yes, Cam Spencer.
You got all the
Cam
steam.
A, woo!
Wow.
So I cannot be unbiased. You don't
have to be unbiased on teams that are outside the market.
Exactly. And so I haven't been, but so when I look at this bracket, we're waiting for him to come out. My best friend circle here from back east is blowing up. They're all like, okay, now the 27th. All right, we're going to go. It's in Boston, because that's where we all went to college together. So the craziness is, I'm going away, so I can't go. So we did fly earlier to Madison Square Garden where they played St. John's the first time. They just beat them again most recently. But so I'm in the auntie club. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not unbiased. However, I do come back from vacation and still have a couple of days before I go back to work. In the Final Four, if they make it there. Maybe I should just change my flight and go right to Arizona. So, but I don't want to jinx it. I'm also that person. So this year, I'm all about the UConn Huskies. And I'm not like a Johnny-come-lately. I am like, okay.
Well, they are the best team in the country.
They are. And some people are like, well, no, it's nice to be because he's number one. I'm like, no, I was a fan of Rutgers when he was playing at Rutgers too. And he just transferred, that nil money we've talked about. But, and a shout out to his brother, Pat, who got his first 2-way contract with the Golden State Warriors.
Jeez.
Yes.
Who's Pat?
Pat Spencer is Cam's older brother. Yeah.
Wow.
So who... Get this,
right?
I don't know. If you're a new friend of the podcast. Mm-hmm. Pat Spencer was the number 1 lacrosse player in the country.
Wow!
And won
Johns Hopkins
Whartonton Award, if I'm saying it correctly. And then was the number 1 overall draft in the lacrosse pro draft. And he said, "I'm a better basketball player, though." And my dream is to play at least one season of D1 basketball. A lot of people are like, who are you?
Wow.
Who's this lacrosse guy thinking he could play D1? Well, he transferred, went to Northwestern as a grad, was like their leading scorer, went and played in Europe, then got on the Golden State Warriors, said, come to camp, kid. And he made their G League team, and they just gave him a 2-way contract. He got his first assist in the NBA.
Holy cow.
I know.
So was the assist to Steph Curry from 40?
I don't know. I'm trying to find that out because that would be amazing, right?
That'd be sweet.
Probably. So, so that's great. So, and they have a younger brother, Will, who plays at Hood. And they were in the, I don't know what division Hood is
What's
in. I
Hood?
should know. Hood University, Hood College. And they were in the NCAAs and lost, but I think either D2, D3.
All right.
But,
Now I'm going to go against
what a family.
That's impressive, but I'm going to go against the grain here, and I think Paul might go against the grain with me. I'm not as big a college basketball fan as I used to be. I'm just not. The regular season doesn't seem to mean as much. A lot of the best players go pro early. They don't build teams the way they used to over the period of time. So even though we're in the midst of March Madness, I'd still rather watch the Wolves.
Yeah. I've always been a professional sports fan over college sports. Maybe it's where I grew up, and then moving to, I've just lived all over the world, but then I settled in Minnesota, and this is certainly not to diminish Golden Gophers football or basketball, but like I was told when I got here in 98, when Golden Gophers basketball is on the beam, the town is on fire.
Yes.
I mean, it's through all these players, Trevor Winter, Spencer Tollickson, was it Vincent Greer?
Arturo, Vincent Greer,
Right.
Jordan Murphy.
I've just
Amir
never
Coffey.
felt it. I've just never really experienced it. So that just caused me to drift a little more.
Well, and I think, I was here when the Bobby Jackson run, and that was as good as you're going to get in sports. It was just wonderful basketball. It was dramatic, but I don't know. College basketball just does not grab me the way it used to, and the Wolves have made it easy to watch the NBA this year.
Well,
of course.
Strangely for me too. I mean, I grew up playing basketball, played it through junior college, growing up in Washington, D.C. when it was the Bullets with Elvin Hayes and Kevin Greavy and Wes Unseld.
I watched those teams growing up in Maryland.
Right. So, I mean, I was just
Phil Chenier.
I was completely bit by Phil Chenier and Kevin Porter and stuff like that. So, I mean, and I played basketball. Now, when I got here in 98, I would look at the ticker at the bottom of whatever it was at that time, Victory, or whatever the sports channel was. And I'd see like Ferris State, Quinnipiac, Merrimack. What the hell is that? I had no idea how big college hockey was here. Well, then I really got into it. I got to know Don Lucia well, Bob Motzko, Jordan Leopold, Johnny Pohl, and so on, and ended up going to their national championship victory over, I believe, Maine at XL Energy Center. Well, I mean, I'm actually as much into the Frozen Four and the 16 teams in the college hockey tournament.
That's a bracket I always fill out.
As I am I am the NCAA tournament. It's just doing the KFAN radio show, whatever, 25, 26 years. And from Mark Parrish through Andrew Brunette, through Mike Yo, I've had weekly guests where they're reliable, they're on time, they're honest, and they're down to earth. And I just really, really enjoy conversations with hockey people. And it's really drawn me to the game.
So usually the way we do this show is Dawn and I talk about local sports or whatever sports we want to talk about. And then we have our guests come in. We're just going to put this show in a blender. We'll get to stuff we get to when we get to it, but I don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation. So I'm going to go big picture here. All three of us came here from other places a long time ago.
Right.
Dawn, when did you get to the market?
I got here 2004.
So you got here in 2004. Paul, you got here in 1998. I came up here in 1990 thinking that I'd be here about 3 years. Because back in the day, that's the way the business worked. You went someplace, you proved you could do job A, then you moved on to do job B in the next market, hopefully for more money and more whatever.
You were waiting for Jim Murray to retire to go join Scott Osler at the LA Times.
Well, you just mentioned two people I don't measure up to. Jim Murray, maybe the greatest of all time. Scott Osler, wonderful writer. But really, back then, we were all pretty mobile. I got here. I almost died waiting outside the hotel for my sports editor to pick me up because I had brought a sport coat in February. I had no idea how cold it was in Minnesota. I'd never been to Minnesota before. Now I've been here 34 years. You two have had kind of the same experience. Yeah. I don't know if you planned on being here forever when you got here. Tell us your story, Paul. Why did you come here, and did you expect to be here this long?
Well, the latter I'll answer first. When I got here in 98 with KFAN in Canterbury Park, yeah, I didn't see myself going anywhere else after that. Now, at that stage, I'm 31 years old, all right? And I had traveled around the country as a racetrack announcer, calling races in I wrote for the Pasadena Star-News for 5 years. And Kevin Modesti was a teammate of mine there. He subsequently went to the LA Daily News. It's like Jay Posner, who used to write for one of the San Diego Union Tribune. I've known him forever. So like when you see Ryan Leaf melting down and yelling at a scribe, that's Jay.
That's Jay.
So, I mean, it's like I go that far back into writing and starting because I didn't go to college. I went to junior college for 5 years, Pasadena City College. I had a campus radio show called Big Band Boom, paying homage to my favorite duo, Daryl Hall and John Oates.
I love it.
And an album they had, Big Bam Boom, at that time. So we played big band music. Glenn Miller, Gene Krupa, Lionel Hampton, Tommy Dorsey, all that kind of stuff. I also traveled with the Pasadena City College drama team and ended up becoming editor-in-chief of the Lancer, the school newspaper. So that got me into the Pasadena Star-News. Starting my career in the newspaper industry, I mean, it's when people ask me questions like, where did you get this from? Where'd you get that from? It's when you, and Jim will know this for sure, when you start on a copy desk and, I had an agate ruler. A pica pole for the agate page.
Yep.
And like when somebody would send a story in and it had to be 16 inches, it had to be 16 inches. So therefore now you're calling the guys, having to rewrite it through a computer that was called a trasher. They were putting it into phones and sending the story.
You're bringing me back,
It would come in garbled, and I'm Cub reporter guy. Now I got to call columnist guy and be like, you got to resend it, So just it causes me to hearken because I learned from 1989 to 1993, A, the importance of the English language, B, the importance of brevity, and C, the importance of constructing a sentence. Mm-hmm. So, if during calling Vikings games, doing KFAN, talking right now, calling races at Canterbury, whatever, I naturally use a vocabulary and syntax that a lot of people don't, simply because of my upbringing in newspapers. And I don't try to sound different. That's just how I've always talked. So the newspaper upbringing helped me exponentially. From there, I auditioned to become a racetrack announcer in San Francisco. God had me win the job. So now I'm on the road going to Grand Island, Nebraska to call races at Fonner Park for a month and a half, filling in for somebody, up to Canterbury when they went from Downs to Park in 95. All right, so that gets me here, and I'm doing the Gypsy Trail for 5 years, Bay Meadows and Golden Gate Fields, Northern California, to Grand Island, Nebraska, to Shakopee. Did that for 4 or 5 years. Finally, Canterbury, KFAN came out in 97, and they were doing Saturday shows at Canterbury, and they're like, can we have your announcer on? All right, cool. Do you know anything about sports? I think so. Came on. They heard something they liked. They had me come in and do sports updates for Jesse the Body Ventura. Jesse and I hit it off immediately because I would go watch music in the Bay Area, and there were musicians that were under the radar that I knew that he knew. So, Jesse and I really hit it off, and so I had an in to KFAN. Then from there, auditioned for the Minnesota Vikings play-by-play job, and through the grace of God, I won, having never done play-by-play or gone to college. And here we are. It would be 30 at Canterbury, 26 at KFAN, and I just finished my 22nd with the Vikings. So I'd say back then, did I know all that was going to happen? Of course not. But I felt when I got here in 98 that I had found home.
Wow.
I have a great question to ask you because I was just talking to some people this week about the mind that you have to do play-by-play. And I remember years ago when I first started my career, my agent was like, hey, there's no women really doing play-by-play, and still very scarce to this day. We really want to do play-by-play. I said, my brain does not work that way. Like, I had enough wherewithal, and I know your brain does because I've seen you call races at Canterbury. I've obviously know how you call games for the Vikings. It's a different brain. You have to calculate things so fast and translate. I can ad lib, I can process information fast, but it's still a different step to. So you said you got the Vikings by never knowing how to do it before. Tell someone how to explain what goes on in your brain in order to see it, say it, calculate it so quickly.
Yeah, it's impossible to explain. It really is. I mean, it would be asking Jim about the best lead, L-E-D-E, he's ever written, and how did you get there at that moment? It's God gives gifts.
But do you go to a different level? You know when we're in the zone. You know when you're in the zone.
Yeah.
Does your brain go into a zone in order to do it?
Well, I've become very good over the years at being able to the ancillary noise and distractions and everything. It's in essence 3 hours and change of pretty much just me and the audience. All right. Now I got the analyst, Pete Bursich, sideline guy, Ben Lieber, knowing how to fit them in. That's key too, because they get to talk too. And on the Vikings radio network, I like to empower the other two and let them hopefully talk more than me outside of the play. But I call it the 2000 Vikings season for Vikings.com. All right. So that's kind of where that's what my resume tape was. There was a vice president named Terry Hummel who came to KFAN and said, CBS, the parent company for WCCO radio, this internet bit just started, and we have a lot of fans worldwide, and the parent company for 830 WCCO will not, they will not let us put the games on the .com and go around the world. So the Vikings came to KFAN and said, here's the deal. Do you have anybody who would do .com games? So Greg Swedberg, one of our bosses who's still there, it was Chad Hartman. They called a company meeting. Hartman, Barrero, Common, me, I think Bob Yates, former co-host Jeff Dubay. We were all in there. And Bossberg, Greg said, here's what's happened. Anybody want to call these games? And I put my hand up. And I had never done them, but I had called races since 93. So that's a form of play-by-play.
Yeah.
But I quickly learned that calling a horse race and calling a football play are similar. And when that hit me, I felt like I was in the right place. In other words, and they're racing. Don Mitchell here, Jim Suhan there, building a crescendo to the top of the stretch into the final furlong. Boom, at the wire. McCarthy. Somebody takes the snap. Penix, back to pass, shakes the shoulders, fires deep to the left side, caught by Jefferson. Ooh, he shakes a tackle at the 20. He's JJ, touchdown, Vikings. They're both crescendo building jobs.
Yes.
And that's just how God wired me to be chill, avoid distractions. The praise and or the criticism has been elevator music for me for quite some time. As both of you guys know, it kind of has to be to do what we do. And that's just it. I just hone the skills and there are two people, Chad Hartman and Kevin Harlan. Chad Hartman was the first one within AM 1130 KFAN to pull me to the side and say, good, awful, bad, mediocre, good. Don't do this more. So he really helped groom me. And then my second season, 03, Kevin Harlan, I'd never met, came up to me and you, he was just weird. He has the quirky gene like me. And he said, you have what it takes, man. You don't sound like anybody else. Well, that's the key is I didn't travel around the country cutting my teeth in other markets, stealing people's styles.
Yeah.
I grew up, from 79 to 93, I was that kid laying in bed listening to Chick Hearn and Vin Scully. Okay, well, Chick Hearn is my all-time favorite play-by-play voice, did the Lakers, and I wanted to be Chick Hearn. So without stealing Chickisms, the man who invented the term slam dunk, triple-double, things like that, skyhook, I'm a limb on his tree. I'm a limb on the Kevin Harlan tree. It's just stylistically that's how God made me, authentically and naturally, without, stealing Kevin Harlan's phrases or style. But Kevin took a liking to me early and still to this day talks to me about play-by-play. So those two had a lot to do with it.
Wow.
That's long-winded right there, man. I told you the newspaper business taught me to be pithy, except for that last 4 minutes.
Not the podcast. We get to go long form, which is what I like about it.
And that's what I wanted, that
asking.
brain, like how the brain functions.
Yeah.
I always said there's got to be some connection.
It's hard to explain.
Because you had me in years ago as a guest at Canterbury to try to do the
race call.
And I think I just made up some terms, but it was fun.
That's hard.
But it is hard, but it was
fun. If I asked either one of you to call a Vikings play, okay, you could get through it and it would probably sound okay. In horse racing, you have the red and the white pole, the green and the white pole. It's like, with a quarter to go in the season, teams, like Jim may write about, there's at the quarter pole, meaning the first quarter of the season. Well, in horse racing, the quarter pole signifies the final quarter of a race or the season. Mm-hmm. So things are just markedly different.
For a while there, my friends made fun of me because they were at that race and they go, whip it around and throw it down.
Right.
All right. So whenever I walked in the room, Don's whipping it around and throwing it down. I go, I don't know where that came from. I was just like nervous and had to spit something out. Yeah. So
happens to me all the time.
I just kind of pay homage to you. Like, whoa.
Well, and I want to pay homage to you in this way. My first real job, I had a choice of going to like a small newspaper and doing a little bit of everything and hoping I could someday move up to the big time. And I went against all advice anybody gave me. And I said, no, screw it. I'm going to take the worst job at the biggest place that'll have me. And so I went I became an agate clerk at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Wow.
But I went there basically, and the sports editor, Bruce Rabin, said, okay, listen, you're going to do 40 hours of agate. Agate means typing in the box scores and putting together the agate page, the stat page on the back of the paper. It's the least glamorous, in an unglamorous business, it's the least glamorous job you can take.
Correct.
But it got my foot in the door. I wrote in my free time. Dallas Morning News ends up hiring me. By the way, I made $6 an hour, no benefits.
Wow.
Dallas Morning News, big time, maybe the best sports section in the country at that time, hired me as a part-time high school writer. $10 an hour, no benefits.
Wow.
But got my foot in the door. Yeah. And that's what you did, man. You did that hard stuff.
Well, and a key there is, I don't think I've ever shared this, but it's money never has mattered to me as much as it does some other people. And people may hear that and say, okay, that's lip service. I mean, whether it's Chad Abbott, the program director at KFAN, Randy Sampson, the boss at Canterbury, if you ask those who have been closest to me for 20 or 30 years, they'll know that I'm absolutely telling the truth. Now, I'm not going to do a job that should pay $100,000 for $15,000 to save the company money. That's not the case. But doing what it takes to get in and then believing in yourself in a way that you will then show the constituents you belong. So like when at Bay Meadows Racecourse 1993 is I caught when they were auditioning for racetrack announcers. I had never professionally called a race in my life. But the 2 years prior, for whatever the reason, because I wanted to be a racetrack announcer, I was going to the roof at Santa Anita Park and Hollywood Park. And with my little tape recorder and a coat hanger that my mom constructed for me for the microphone to go in it, I probably had 300 to 500 race calls into that. So Bay Meadows, which no longer exists, had an opening. I jumped in what I called the Sanford & Son mobile, this red Dodge Sport, drove up to Northern California, picked my parents for probably another $1,000. Wouldn't be here right now if they just didn't help me for X amount of years financially. And I went up to the track president, Jack Liebau, who knew me from Pasadena Star News and horse racing stuff I was doing. And I said, I'd like to get an opportunity for the job. And he said, you have no experience. I can't do that. We have 29 others. I said, all right, well, stayed over, got my parents to pay for the motel another day at Candlestick Point, went to a Giants against whomever game, watched John Burkett pitch, contemplated things, went back the next day, hit play on the tape record. I found there's the track president, Jack Liebau, walking around, kind of bum rushed him, hit play, and he stopped. And I think he liked the tenacity and he liked the enterprising approach and knew that I was serious. So he said, all right, you got races 6 and 9 today. And I'm like, perfect. My binoculars are in my car. So then I got up there and did it. I don't know if it was good or bad, but they whittled it down to 3. And these are others who had made this a career for their lives, and I never had, so it's down to 3. And we each had 3 races at the Bay Meadows Fair, August of '93. And he said, "All right, you're down to the final 3. What do you need to make if you happen to win?" And I said, "Well, what does it pay?" And he said, $225 a day. And I said, "I'll do it for $125 a day." And he said, "Get the F out of here. Go call your races." I called the races, brought me in the next day, gave me $275 a day. And that started my racetrack announcing career. Canterbury's going to open in '95. They caught wind of my work through simulcasting or teleracing. They wanted somebody young, exuberant, and energetic, if that's me. So then they hired me, and that just kind of started the whole thing.
I love that you've always been unapologetically yourself. And it's not even bum rushing someone. It's like, hey, if you're excited about something, you're going to do it. And this is the number one thing I tell all my interns too now. If someone gives you an opportunity, you don't shrink from it.
Right.
You didn't hesitate. When he says, you've got these 2 races today, call them. You're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. It's crazy.
No
I
doubt
love
about it. And by the way, you also brought back some memories with the couplers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trash
And
80.
the Trasher.
The Trash
the Trasher.
80.
You'd love that.
The old Radio Shack. We used to have these little Radio Shack. I hesitate to call them computers,
Yeah.
but they were computer-like.
Yes.
And you would type, and you're on deadline.
Yeah.
Your type, you could see about this much of your story. I'm holding my fingers up like 2 inches apart.
Mhm.
You can see about 2 inches of your story at a time. And if you type really fast, as I did, it would the cursor would race ahead, and it would take half an hour to get back and correct your mistakes.
Really?
So you had to be like perfect, and you're on deadline. And so my story is, you had the old Trash 80, and I would cover a high school football game in Texas. While I'm in the press box finishing up after doing interviews and finishing writing, they would lock up the stadium. So I would have to climb over the barbed wire fence to get out. I'd rip my pants. I'd get into my Ford Rabbit. My VW Rabbit, which had 832,000 miles in it.
Jeez.
I'm exaggerating a bit.
Right.
I would drive to the nearest 7-Eleven. I would have to have 8 quarters.
Yeah.
I would dial the desk.
Yep.
Then I would have to stand there in a 7-Eleven parking lot.
Look at your pager.
Look at my pager.
For associate sports editor guy to write saying, all right, we're good.
Yes. Then I would have to hold the headset of the phone in the couplers in just the right way so that the story would get transmitted via phone into the desk. And then that would always fail, so you end up dictating anyway.
Yeah. Well, just to land the plane on 30 seconds. So 2000 Vikings come to KFAN. CBS won't do this. I put my hand up. So now I think I called all the Vikings games that year, like 6 from TV at AM 1130 KFAN in Bloomington on Xerxes. So I'm calling games off TV, which was a precursor for the pandemic in 2020. And we would, when I would go on the road, it's not with the team, I'd be at the end of press boxes. We would be in suites, wherever the team would be. It was very, very challenging, but it turns out that I learned so much by overcoming those obstacles and giving them what they wanted for their, fans that are not in necessarily the state or the country, but around the world with the new .com. And that kind of paved the way for that.
What I really enjoy sitting with both of you is I'm a firm believer in that writing skills matter. Like that is the foundation. Absolutely. When I was right out of college, still in college, and I would be at the Red Sox press boxes, and Peter Gammons was there. And what I love about Peter Gammons, if those of you listening don't know, formerly of the
greatest beat writer of all time.
Yeah,
really?
Amazing. Boston Globe, amazing beat writer.
He invented modern baseball writing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where you don't just go to the game and write about, get 2 quotes and write about the, he was the first baseball writer or sports writer to say, I'm going to cover everything. I'm going to cover everything from the Cape Cod League to the World Series. I'm going to know what the Class A second baseman eats for breakfast. I'm going to know every scout in the game. I'm going to have everybody on speed dial. Nobody had ever done it the way he did it before. And I'll be honest, I don't even like Peter personally. We never got along, but I can't take anything away from him. He invented the best form of modern beat writing.
Jeez.
I love Peter. And he was one of those that kind of took me under his wing in terms of, he said, hey, I like your writing. because I was doing stuff behind the scenes. I wasn't even saying it. I was doing associate producing and stuff like that. He'd be like, hey, who wrote blah, blah, blah? I go, well, I did. And he's like, all right. And he would sit me down and be like, again, I like this, work on this. And he was the one that said, listen, I know that you want to stay in Boston. I know that you're a Massachusetts girl. People die in these positions. Like these sports anchors aren't going anywhere. Yeah. So you are not going to get any better. And he was the one that said, start thinking, I know you love Nesson, but you are not going to get any better if you continue to do just this for the next 5 years. You have to leave and go somewhere else. You have to be in the trenches. You have to da-da-da-da. And so I do remember that. I was even behind the scenes at CBS Baseball. So that's a minute ago. And it was unbelievable where those remember the baseball games used to have those elaborate opens? Like, we welcome you, da-da-da-da. So it was Dick Stockton and Jim Cott were calling the games. And Dick is looking over this open, and a broadcast associate, they call them BAs, wrote it really quickly because they're doing 100 million things. They do so much. And he's kind of like, he hands it to me. And he goes, can you rewrite this?
Yeah.
And I go, what? He goes, you go to Boston College. You went to Boston College, right? Just like my wife, well, former wife. So he said, just like my wife goes, so who of course you all know is Leslie Visser at the time, goes, Boston College, she's a great writer. You're here. You must be a good writer. Write it. And I'm like, what? And it's just a 30-second open. So I would just tweak it or do whatever. And he would read it that way. And I remember calling back to my parents, Mom, Dad, make sure you're at the beginning of the game. I wrote that, or tweaked it or whatever I did. So he would have me do that. And so I remember thinking, this is the basis. So whenever there's someone young, and I said, listen, first of all, you got to know the sport. You have to know the sport. I said, the rules, the game, inside and out, the players, you got to know too, but they change. Know the sport first, but know how to write.
Yeah.
And succinct.
Well, I'm going to make Jim smile. All right. Stop smiling because of these references I'm about to hit. Now, first and foremost,
I'm not going to smile.
Jim, with all due respect to friends of mine and people I've known for years, Jim turns a phrase as well as anybody I've read in a very long time. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when I say turn a phrase, that's kind of how I was raised with what I read and what I listened to, because I'm not saying straight writing or just, the who, what, where, when, or why. That's what everybody's there for. But the ability to turn a phrase like Jim does, or like what I grew up reading, LA Times, Jim Murray, ladies and gentlemen, start your coffins. All right. He's writing about the Indianapolis 500. Ladies and gentlemen, start your coffins.
Greatest one-line writer in history, and that was his greatest one line.
Right. And I mean, I'm reading it 3 times a week while I'm 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and so on. So then after that, when I'm writing and working on the desk at the Pasadena Star-News, we had a sports editor for a short amount of time named Randy Hill. And he came in, and it's the year the Braves were going to play the Twins in the World Series. So here we are in Pasadena, California, but it's the World Series. So, I don't know why he was writing this story if it was those two teams and we're in SoCal. But the Braves qualified first. So then he was waiting for the AL team. Well, his lead was Ted and Jane are expecting twins. That's
so
unbelievable.
Good. That's so good.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Okay, so I'm reading it and I'm getting bit. Okay, now I got Jim Murray, now I got this. I'm listening to Chick Hearn, and then here's where Jim's going to smile. One of my favorite publications in the history of publications then came out called The National.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
With Mike Lupica, a dear friend of mine, Brad Free, who's with Daily Racing Form now. He was their big horse racing guy. And I had heard of Mike Lupica, but I'd never read him. Well, now all of a sudden I'm reading this shooting from the lip thing. He's unbelievable with his turn of phrase. Barrero, when he wrote columns for the Star Tribune, he would turn phrases. Jim does. And the reason I bring it up that way is because I read a lot, and just not a lot of people are either confident enough or feel they have enough space or whatever to turn a phrase, where they're thinking about, how am I going to put it from a play-by-play standpoint? It's a 61-yard Minneapolis Miracle. That's a turn of phrase. Yeah. Okay, I didn't write it down. I didn't think of it. That's what God had come out in that moment. So it's natural that way for people like Jim and all the names that I mentioned. So the turn of phrase is incredibly important to me. analogies, metaphors, symbolism. That's very important to me. But when it comes to beat writers, with all due respect to Peter Gammons, and that's that's a name of reverence for decades. Michael Russo, and it's not because he's in the Talk North podcast family, he's the greatest beat writer I've ever been associated with in my life, simply because of how he handles the privacy of relationships in terms of what we call background, how on top he is of everything before it happens. He's able to keep a secret, and he grinds, and he's a very good writer. So Michael Russo, I've told him this before, I've said it on the radio. You know, I'm not real familiar with Peter, the beat writer. I know the name, of course. Michael Russo is the greatest beat writer with whom I've ever worked in my life.
I think that's accurate. Peter invented the kind of beat writing that Michael has perfected. And there are a lot of things working here. Number one is Russo pours his entire life into it.
Yeah.
He never stops working. He never stops making content. I can't tell you how many times on the road, back when we traveled a lot together and we worked for the Star Tribune, we'd be planning to have lunch, before a game on the road or a playoff game or dinner, whatever, drinks, whatever. You go, oh, nope, I got to go meet an official. And so he was going to go have lunch. He never stops working. As you said, he knows how to work an organization and a league. And it takes so much effort. It takes so much attention. I prided myself on being a very good beat writer. When I was a beat writer, I couldn't have gone on as long as Michael had. And Michael's better than I was as a beat writer, but he
never stops.
He just never stops.
Well, he stops for three things:
coffee, and coffee.
Trampled by turtles.
Yeah.
And dinner at Anthony LaPanta's house.
Yeah. True. But none of those three things prevent him from being on his phone.
Right.
Continue to work.
Yeah, correct.
Well, see, that's the beauty of being at the NFL Scouting Combine, and all of us, whether we want to concede it or not, some way are overly consumed with our phones. Okay. It's whether you're laying in bed, whatever you're doing, I see that weekly report come up on my phone. Like that thing comes up and I look away. I'm like, come on, be a good number here. Up 4%. What the hell?
Yeah.
So with that said, when you're at the NFL Scouting Combine, it's beautiful. You can look at your phone anywhere around anybody, because if they're like, dude, why are you looking at it's the combine.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There may be a sneaky trade. Well, there's not a sneaky trade. I just want to look at my fantasy basketball team. Don't feel like immersing myself in the conversation and just want to separate myself. We don't profess or champion doing that. But when there are opportunities to push the envelope a little, the NFL Scouting Combine is definitely one.
Well, this is a perfect transition because it's not such a sneaky trade, but there's been a lot of things going on. But the fact now that the Vikings have 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
Oh, yes, Jim?
I'm going to interrupt because I know we're going to get going on this topic.
You got a commercial break?
We do have a commercial break. But let's start with longtime sponsor, champion of women's sports, Rudy Luther Toyota.
Ready for a women-forward car dealership? Rudy Luther Toyota empowers their many women on staff in sales, management, and service. Whether you are looking for a new Toyota or pre-owned vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota has something for everyone. Every vehicle comes with a Luther Advantage. 10 cents off fuel and car wash discounts at holiday stations, Luther Advantage warranty, and 5-day return policy on pre-owned vehicles. Located just 5 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis, off 394 and General Mills Boulevard. And they're also hiring. Want to join the team but don't know where to start? Visit rudyluthertoyota.com today.
And very quickly, you know the deal with TSR injury law, 612-TSR-TIME is all you need to remember, 612-TSR-TIME. And as Paul said, Twill in the Dining Galleria, Scott Dayton's a wonderful guy. It's a great shop. Just go there, twillmn.com. You know what? This show is turning...
What's TSR guy's name?
Steve Terry.
Yeah, and he's
Great
on that
guy.
billboard with
He's
Nazarene.
awesome.
Yes.
That billboard's the bomb.
It
I
is.
mean, they must have just popped up.
Yes.
Because like when we're recording this, I was at the Vikings facility today, Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, to sit down with the GM for a half hour to start the show. And I'm driving back, and I guess I hadn't seen it. And I'm like, damn, I see my man at the Wolves games all the time by the Wolves bench. And then I see this cool billboard for TSR. So good for you and good for them.
Well, and Steve is a wonderful guy. He's been great to us. And he's somebody, like, if I were injured tomorrow, I would just call, I'd call his personal number. I wouldn't call the big number, but I would go, I trust the guy.
And I can attest, I was in the foursome when we played in the Vikings tournament.
Yep.
And let's just say I'm somewhere between Michelle Wee and Ooh Wee. You know, like I'm good, I'm really bad. You
That's
know,
a turn of
That's a
phrase.
turn of
So there
phrase.
you
That is
go.
a turn of phrase.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, with no split infinitive, split infinitives.
Thank you.
And you didn't dangle the preposition on.
He did not. And let me tell you, he
And you failed
championed
to
me.
say
He was
whence.
so good. So I'm like, that
Yeah, he's
makes me want to golf again because, ever since I hurt my back, I mean, you just never know what you're going to get out there with me.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
All right, now that I've interrupted
Yes.
your show.
What
Yes. Well, because we would be remiss if we did not talk to you about what's going on now with the Vikings.
I love
Because
chatting with you guys.
know,
This is awesome.
you just get the shovel out and we're just kind of digging through everything.
It's been crazy.
We can talk about about Sam Darnold and how they avoided the term bridge. We got Aaron Jones coming in with his sunglasses that rival yours, Jim. I just wanted to tell you.
His are nicer.
Yeah, his are a little nicer. Yeah. But also now being able to, I think everyone in the world thinks they're going to package now these two picks and try to get, move up in the draft. Your thoughts on any of it? And I know you're close to the team and you don't give away secrets. We talked about that. That's a really good thing about being a journalist. But in your mind, is it an exciting time, stressful time? What do you think?
It's a big question because, we've all been here decades, multiple decades, more than 3 for Jim. So, Jim has seen free agency and off seasons that are crickets, or you try to go for somebody and you can't get them and you get beat, or now we've seen an off season like this so far. It's in thinking about it, 2009, when Brett Favre joined the team in August. All right. I mean, that was as ballyhooed and that was as frenzied as anything I've seen in my 20 whatever years.
Helicopters. We had helicopters.
Correct. And, but you see, what led up to that is the Vikings had a preseason game at Indianapolis. And the quarterbacks, I believe, were Tavares Jackson
and Sage Rosenfels.
And there might have been that might have been John David Booty terrorism at that time.
Yes.
But there were 3. All right. Well, I mean, with all due respect, it was terrible. I think that might have been the first year of Lucas Oil also. So I remember that. And then I remember being told Brad Childress was so frustrated by the impotent quarterback play and so concerned about things coming up. Now he gets here in 2006. It's boring. 2007, Adrian, Rookie of the Year. They get close to the playoffs. Greg Williams, defensive coordinator for Washington in the season's penultimate game. That was the year Sean Taylor died, and they were all rallied around that. And it was virtually impossible to beat Washington. But nevertheless, Greg Williams came in and said, here's the deal. We're going to let you know we're going to put 10 guys in the box to slow the Rookie of the Year because we don't think your quarterback can throw. And he was right. So the Vikings basically got bounced there. 2008, they win the division. I remember Darrell Bevel, the offensive coordinator, telling Tavares Jackson the entire week, you got Asante Samuel over there, you got Sheldon Brown over there. Never throw it the way of Asante. Well, he did, and Asante picked it off and went to the end zone from like 25 out. So now they're dead. So Childress is not a line of delineation there regarding job security, but I mean, we're starting to get a little dicey. So then we have that Indianapolis playoff game, and then he's like, I don't care to the Wilfs or whomever, Spielman, I don't care we have to have him. So they get him for $20 million. 2009 was unbelievable. Outside of that offseason, I haven't seen anything close to what's happened this offseason. Yes. And, it's kind of having, and it's starting to get more complicated with the layers. In other words, Kevin O'Connell, I'm going to play Clue here. Kevin O'Connell does an NFL Network little hit a few Saturdays ago. And in getting to know Kevin as well as I have and doing a weekly radio show with him, I'm not one to be like, I looked in Jim's eyes and this is the answer. I'm not that guy. But people have ticks, and O'Connell's new at this, and I'm not. So therefore, I've been sitting down with him for a couple of years, and I can kind of tell with Kevin when he's starting to get frustrated, sad, happy, or whatever. When he did that little NFL Network thing with Eisen and Jeremiah, and he's like, this is not supposed to happen here. People say it does. but he made it sound like something went way over the overboard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, now we learn that he might have learned there Cousins was going to get $100 million guaranteed, and he was pissed off, but he didn't want to come out and say it. So now you got Atlanta potentially tampering, which happens with almost every team, if not every team, but they're a little cavalier about it. They're just being a little cocksure with the guy they got, the money they paid. We don't care who knew what when. All right, so that's starting to develop. So now Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the general manager, the 20, and this with all due respect, the 2022 draft, I mean, it might have set this team back X amount of years. It just was a bad draft. And whether it was all Kwesi, no Kwesi, I don't care who it was. Jim writes about it. You talk about it on TV. I call the games and I talk about it on KFAN. And it's never personal with me.
Mm-hmm.
But from seeing through the end, Asamoah in the middle, it's just not working. Doesn't mean it won't, but it's rubber meet road time for the 2022 draft. All right, so we start off behind that. 2023, they bring in Addison. Ivan Pace Jr. was a major hit. And, that's the year before. They win 13 games, super energetic. I love O'Connell and his offensive mind. All right, so now we're starting to even it out a little bit. But one thing that's I think not reported on or discussed enough is when Kwesi got hired, a major part of the deal was getting the roster younger and making sure you're not looking for nickels and dimes between couch cushions every single free agency period. All right, so now this offseason, they got like 30 to 40 to spend. They've spent it. They made that big trade with Houston, so 2 first-rounders. Next offseason, I believe if they get Jefferson done, if and or when, they're still going to be top 5 in the NFL for under the cap money, like close to $100 million.
Right.
So people are going to look at the Lewis Cine trade, which clearly hasn't worked out at this stage, or some other details, but there's also an overarching situation that he was charged with, and he's coming through. So it's I work with Kwesi. I don't get paid to call games by the Vikings. I'm not a team employee, which sucks, being 58 from a pension standpoint, especially putting 22 years in. Holy cow. I mean, I'm like 6 years from getting X amount of dollars and benefits the rest of my life. Come on. Okay, but that's okay, because the choice was made when I started my job. I'm not going to be a team employee because I ain't letting go of this radio job. And there will be things said that you probably don't like. Oh, and by the way, gambling wasn't as accepted in the NFL in 2002 as it is now. And I'm not giving up the racetrack job either, because my best friends work there and I opened this track with them. So left a lot of money on the table pension-wise, but makes it easier to jump on the Talk North podcast or 9 to Noon and say the 2022 draft was not very good. And in fact, it was bad and it set the team back. Well, that's one part of it with Kwesi. The other part is what I talked about, getting it younger, finding free agency money, and getting the younger guys signed. And that's all starting to happen right now. So we had to wait a little bit, but from Grenard through Sherfield, the wide receiver, Trent Sherfield, I mean, there's been so much. And to close here, the what I really like about the early stages of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, he's a big decision guy. I mean, there's a line of delineation on his decisions where it makes it pretty, at least for me, easier to determine whether it was good or bad. There's just not as much subterfuge, as I've dealt with, either here or other places over the years, where it's like, all right, that first trade, they got Jamison Williams. He sat out longer than anybody thought. We had that gambling thing. That sucks. But the other guy's not playing. Okay, so win or lose this side and that side. It's just easy to determine it to this stage, the moves he makes, whether they've been good or bad. And it just continues with this frenzied offseason.
So usually we spend more time on women's sports than we're going to this week. I think we're just going to make this the Paul Allen show because it's been a blast. We do want to mention and congratulate Nicole Lukic for getting a job with U.S. Soccer after running the Minnesota Aurora. We love Nicole and we wish her well. We'll talk more about her in the near future. We'll also talk more about the women's Big Ten tournament being in town, the women's bracket and all that other stuff. But for this week,
Well, Caitlin Clark's unbelievable.
She's
unbelievable.
the greatest college basketball player of all time.
Right. And I mean, that goes back because I was in Southern California when Cheryl Miller played at Riverside Poly.
Yeah.
All right. So, I moved from Washington, D.C. via, I've been sadly part of 3 divorces with my mom, God rest her soul. So I'm moving to the Philippines, Hawaii, back to Washington, D.C. Now I'm in Los Angeles in 79, and I'm a basketball player by trade. So our first Christmas tournament we had at Glendora High School, Reggie Miller was a senior at Riverside Poly. And he came in for the Christmas tournament, and I'm on the freshman or sophomore team. But at the holiday tournament, she got to sit on the varsity bench. It was the best ever. So there's Reggie, and they're like, who's that? Oh, that's his sister Cheryl. Wait till you get a load of her. So I'm following Cheryl Miller at Riverside Poly, during her run there, and she was unbelievably good.
She was.
And through Lisa Leslie, but the Caitlin Clark situation and her humility, I mean, she's getting swamped and swarmed in a way Diana Taurasi, Lindsay Whalen, Beckers, and so on have never experienced.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable what she faces.
Perform.
Right.
And to still perform.
And she's able to, like that question you asked me earlier about play-by-play, it's hard to explain how to channel, to channel or divert things and channel what matters most and recognize that I serve you. Okay. You have taken the time to turn on my radio show. You've taken the time to listen to me call a game or the broadcast team. Well, that's been very important to me for a long time, is I serve you. It's not the other way. You're not fortunate to listen to me. You're not fortunate to watch you. You're not fortunate to read Jim. It's the other way around.
Right.
So when you come at it from that standpoint that I'm serving the public, well, I'm not comparing myself to Caitlin Clark, but that's her, is she recognizes that there are so many people responsible for her popularity and selling out places that otherwise don't sell out. She just has a great reverence for fans and for people who have taken her and carried her where she is now. I love that girl.
And she's young. To have that wherewithal at the age she is unbelievable. I have seen, and we've seen on social media where the young girls are trying to tap them on the shoulder or her in the middle of a game. You know, it's a timeout.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, I'll sign it after the game.
Yeah.
Like, that would never happen in the pros.
Well, somebody texted, I was watching Providence Academy, and was it Albany or somebody?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. The and Chad Greenway and I have been friends for years. Well, his daughter Madden, plays for Providence Academy.
And so does Beckett now.
Right.
Yeah, his daughter Beckett. Yeah.
I didn't know that until I was watching that game. And then I was texting with somebody about Madden. And then he said, she'll end up the greatest college basketball player in the history of Minnesota. And I'm like, all right, well, I love Lindsay Whalen. She lives around the corner from me. And Lindsay and I have gotten to know each other on a personal level over the last, let's say, 10 years. Okay. But what she did for the University of Minnesota and in the WNBA is phenomenal.
Amazing.
And then it's like,
I just got chills.
No way is she going to be as good as Lindsay was for, what was it, Hutchinson? Well, then I was reminded, because Paul Madden's a sophomore. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I had forgotten so holy cow. I mean, you look at that and how polarizing she is, Lindsay, and everything we've talked about. That I think that's really cool.
But what I really love too is these women, Caitlin Clark, there's going to be someone else that comes and breaks the record because there's more exposure now. There's that young little girl that is that's watching Madden Greenway now. Just like Maddie might have watched Lindsay Whalen, you know, they're just there. They're Chad Greenway's wife, Jenny. She's a strong, athletic woman. You have these mentors and these role models now that you want the next generation to beat your record. You want the next one to be the greatest. So I think that's the level that we're seeing now, and it's so great.
It is. By the way, you mentioned something very early that I want to come back to. Daryl Hall, John Oates. Have you watched live from Daryl's house?
Each one twice.
Every one of them.
And he just started a new one.
I've fallen behind. I have to catch up the new ones then.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. But no, Daryl Hall. When I lived in Los Angeles, all right, so being a white guy growing up in Washington, D.C., all right, it's when there was a white singer that sang like him, and all my black friends, Lucius Tisdale, Miles Spires, Eric Wainwright, Danny Norton, Billy Camilio, when all my black friends were like, Rob, your dog's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite singer. That's why I'm wearing off-white Cole Haan loafers. I got my hair parted in the middle and feathered back. I got my white T-shirt and my coat with the popping the collar. I wanted to be Daryl Hall. And so from that time on, I'd say 76, 77, 78, right around Sarah Smile, a little after Rich Girl. Yeah, I mean, when you're able to win with the white market with your music, and then with the black market with your music, well, you've won everything, at least at that time. So yeah, I've always loved Daryl Hall.
Can you sing or play an instrument?
Well, the answer would be no and no.
Okay.
But Michael McDonald, you don't know me, but I'm your brother. That's as close as I
That's
get.
really good.
I keep forgetting.
That's really good.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
Well, can
it
I
is.
come to Glicks?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can.
Now by looking at Twitter today, I know you perform at Glicks.
Yes.
Well, and guess who sang backup for me? Chris Hawkey and Don Mitchell.
Oh, wow.
Last time out.
What song? Drift Away, Dobie Gray?
No, I
There's
did that
a
one by
couple of
myself.
them. Was it Brown Eyed Girl?
No, we did. We had Dawn up for
that's sweet.
Sweet Caroline.
Which is hard to be back up on Sweet Caroline. I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest with you. You know, that's more of like a frat song in terms of backgrounds. But I still went there.
You went there. Hawkey, I think, did he did a Black Crowes song. He did. I don't know. I can't remember now. He was
Well,
up there for a while.
If you ever do Daryl Hall and John Oates, Kiss on My List from the Voices album, I'll be the one to go, no, wait, this would be, the Kiss on My List, I'll be the guy to go, because you're Kiss. But if you ever do Rich Girl, I'll be the one to go, bitch girl. I was in the song, and they almost couldn't play it on the radio.
And it's so
It's
fun.
May 8th, isn't it?
Paul,
Your next one?
Paul, I've known you for a long. No, we don't spend a lot of time together, but I've known you for a long time. I've learned so much about you that I didn't know before,
Wow.
and you have brought back so many memories
Good.
for me in my life and my career.
Good.
I think that Daryl Hall and John Oates album, the one with the Rich Girl on it,
Oh, yeah.
that was the first album I ever bought.
Bigger than both of us.
Yes, and I brought it back, and I went up to my stair, and young people will not understand any of these words. I took the album
Yep.
out of the album cover,
Which had the words on
which
it.
had the words, on it, and I put it on my turntable.
Yep.
And I played it really low so my parents wouldn't ground me because of the word bitch.
Well, now first and foremost, you started it on 45.
Oh yes,
Which means it was because you're a rich girl gone too far. No matter anyway. Oh, wait, I go 72. And then you went to the
78, I think.
78, whatever. And then
Yes.
you heard it the right way.
yes.
But yeah, it's like when that came out in like 76. So I'm like 12 or 13.
And I was 13. Yeah.
And when you're hearing somebody on the radio
14,
go,
something like
you're a rich girl gone too far, bitch girl. And then I'm like, wow. You can't say that. You said
you
that on the
can't
radio.
say that on
Yeah.
the radio.
Crazy.
You can't say that in public.
My first album I bought was Purple Rain. Imagine what my parents would.
Wow. That's a good first get, though.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Hey, this has been great. This has been a blast.
Yes.
Paul, is
Peter,
there
thank
anything
you
else
so much.
you want to say? Any other topic you want to get to before we let you go?
No, not really.
Old school, best school.
Old school, best school with both of you. And, you know, and the reference to that with Dawn and I is ages old. Old school, best school. And it plays into just some attitudes or some entitled individuals who have come and gone in our market. Maybe they're still here or not. Where, like Dawn and I, we've had a good trust factor with each other for multiple decades, where I'm able to say something to her that maybe you wouldn't say loudly in public. And likewise, she's able to do that with me. And I think one time I'm like, man, somebody needs to remind that guy, the lines are long and the gigs are hard to find, that you just don't jump in here and think you're all that because you got 8,000 Twitter followers. You know what I'm saying? So it's that's the origin of old school, best school. But I'm excited to watch the Timberwolves in deep stretch of their season, see what happens there. Just took my son, Derek. He's now 23. Dawn knows him. Just took him to Los Angeles for the Wolves-Lakers, Wolves-Clippers.
Fantastic.
And cut a deal with the team, you know, which now is part of the iHeart family. And I've gotten to know Chris Finch pretty well the last couple of years.
Great guy.
He's on the radio show weekly. I talk about vein opening, telling it like it is.
Yeah.
When you're able to call your best player and say he played immaturely and best player concedes he did and says, by the way, I like hard coaching. when you have that surrogate father / boss relationship with your best player, you're a winner. And Chris has that with Anthony. So took my son out there. They split. That was really cool. Excited to follow the team into the postseason. My daughter is a junior in college at University of Colorado Boulder. She's a psychology and criminology double major, doing quite well. Been a lot of moguls from her. She's the most inspirational person I've ever known in my life. She's 21 years of age. She got bullied out of a high school. We had to transfer her as a sophomore. She missed half a year, came into her senior year with a 0.7 GPA, rallied herself to get accepted at CU Denver, and then eventually get to Boulder. Now, the bottom line on that Boulder thing is keeping me in 3 jobs later in my life than I thought, but that's okay. So my daughter is the most inspirational person in my life. She's the toughest person I've ever met. She's fearless, which as a woman is a great characteristic to have. As a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old woman and being her dad, tough characteristic to have. The old fearless gene with my daughter because she just takes chances, calculated chances. So I wanted to get that out there, how much I love Nicole, and she's everything to me. And finally, with that 11 and that 23, I chatted with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah today on the radio, and I asked him, so because Jim and Dawn too. It's like, when you get an opportunity to interview somebody like that, it's almost a can't-win deal.
Yes.
It's because I leave it feeling, I could have done more. I could have followed up here. So I kind of feel weird after I do it with like a GM, like I could have done more. And then the audience is going to be, you didn't ask about May, didn't ask about McCarthy. You did ask about Reisner, but what about, so you're not going to please everybody, which I'm fine with. But I asked him, with these picks that you now have, do you have a preferred scenario in the draft? And he said yes. Now, either one of you, if he says yes, would you have followed up on live TV or say you're live writing a column? Would you have followed up with, what is that scenario?
Well, I probably would have, but that's if it's, let me put it this way, if it's me and Kwesi in a room talking, just the two of us,
100%.
I follow up with that
100%,
knowing that he's going to say, no comment.
Well, if you're in a room and it's off the record, you might get the answer. But if you're doing it publicly, you're going to kill the whole interview right there.
Yes. No, that's the thing.
Depends on how you ask the question.
Correct.
If you say, would you be, like, kind of tongue in cheek, would you be willing to share that?
And then you'll get if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Exactly. Then you know where you stand and you haven't crossed a line.
I don't know.
And
that's a little cliche for me.
I just don't think you're going to get the answer.
Depends on what your boss wants, though, too, right? In that situation.
Actually, it sounds like Paul doesn't care as much about what his boss wants as what he wants, which I respect.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it. I'm very fortunate with the way I call games, given I had never done it until this job, that the bosses with the Vikings and with KFAN, they let me be myself. And they know that I'm going to, I just sound different. I know I sound different. I can't explain how I sound different. I just know I do. It seems to have worked for a couple of decades, but they do give me a great free rein. And for that, I respect them greatly.
Well, we respect you.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm assuming that you did not follow up with that question to Kwesi.
I didn't.
Okay.
No.
Because in essence, you knew he wasn't going to tell you.
Well, I knew I was sitting back on on an Atlanta Falcons tampering question.
So it was pretty early in the conversation. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's it's part of the skill of interviewing too.
Yeah.
Knowing how to massage the situation. If you went on your gut because when you're in person with that person, if you feel like if I ask this next question, it's going to shut it down the rest of the way, then you don't go.
We don't go.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing is that the people we interview today are so savvy.
They know.
There used to be a time when I started up the business where you could manipulate people into a corner and then get them to answer a question they don't want to answer. It doesn't happen anymore. They've all been watching ESPN for 40, 30 years. They all know how it works. They all they can say no comment. They can cut off the interview. They can cut off access. The idea that a journalist is going to get somebody to tell somebody something they don't want to tell you is false now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not a journalist. I do a radio show. Yeah, I'm not a journalist. I am a play-by-play voice who calls races and does a radio show. And I'm not being arrogant here, but I probably could break 8 out of every 10 Viking stories.
Right.
But trust matters more to me than being the first on Twitter to go this has happened. You know, they let me watch practice when the media leaves because they know I'm not going to tell anybody.
Right.
So that matters more to me. Not just to know that I'm the one that gets that, but it helps me with the game call a lot. And they know it does. And I've shown them why it really helps me. So, but nevertheless, that means that also doesn't mean when you're in certain situations like this, that you're going to get complete contrition or the exact answer. And you just have to roll with it until the next fight.
No doubt.
It is all about getting someone's confidence and keeping it. And also that line of doing your job where they know the game, you know the game. And so if they tell you something off the record and be like, hey, when will you be able to tell me when it's official on the record? Will you give me a heads up? That's kind of how you work it. A lot of people are like, how come you didn't da-da-da? I'm like, it was off the record. If something is off the record to me, and sometimes when you know someone well, they don't even have to say it's off the record. They just, I'm just saying this to you. Yeah. Like, well, you don't need those exact words.
No.
You know, some people play that game.
There's a back scratching aspect of what we do.
Yes.
More so you two than me. But I mean, it's unspoken where, I mean, this is a crass way to put it, but it has Hooker and John to it, you know, with all due respect. I have something to give you. You have something to give me. Let's just keep the whole thing quiet and move on with our lives. So there's that aspect of the I'm sorry. Hopefully I didn't offend you with that reference there because your face looked like
I'm not a hooker, so I'm not offended.
Your face just looked like Quasey's when I asked when I was like, yeah, so the preferred scenario is it Drake May or JJ McCarthy and why?
I was like, where is he going with
but
this?
You know
one?
what I'm saying? I got something to give you, you got something to give me. Let's just keep it quiet, move on with our lives.
Well, and there's also a time too where there's
Hooker and John podcast.
There we go.
Paul Allen.
Bye, everyone.
It could have been Pimp and
Tip
Hooker.
your server.
You know what I mean?
I remember there has been times where I have some information and I know that it's bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know it's 100% correct.
Right.
I go to that person. You know, well, some people are like, well, you're tipping them off.
Yeah.
No,
Thank God you guys do that.
This is what I've heard.
I don't want to do that.
And I heard it from a source that is quasi respectable, but I don't know the full truth. I'm not going to go to another person. I'm going to go straight to that person that it's about. And I've done this with an athlete before.
Yeah.
And sometimes through their handler, if I can't get to them. And I said, this is what I know.
Yeah.
I am not going on the record with it.
Wow.
Until I get a response from this person. This is not, my source is not a joke source, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there's something inside me that's like, I don't know. And I'm glad I've done that because that person be like, and I'm not going to say who this athlete was, like, that is good to know. The partial truth is this.
Yeah.
And it was 99.9% wrong in a very bad way. And I'm glad I didn't go with it. Now that athlete to this day is still like, I trust her with any information.
Yeah.
Because she didn't go with it. And then it came out later in some subsequent stuff that it was someone else that did something. But I heard it was this person. You have to sometimes you have to trust. Some people just like, well, it's 99. I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
I just had this gut feeling that something stunk. You know, it did the stinks.
And you were right.
Yeah. But I went right to that person. You have to. I'm like, maybe that's my directness of being raised in the East Coast. But I'm like, you may be angry with this information I'm bringing you, and you may shoot the messenger. This is a really tough call for me, but I need to know if this is true. You know, I'm not going to go with it if it's not. And the respect that I got in return, and that's the fine line you have to go with. You know, because I said, listen, if it is true, I got to go with this. And it's like, thank you for telling me, but this is what happened. This is the, you know, and this is the part that's off the record, but this is the part that's on.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing you have to navigate. And especially you're closer to the team. You're with them all the time. A lot of people think you are, you know, on the team's payroll. You know, people think that. And it's good to, you know, that you like, no, like there's so much that you have sacrificed not to be on that is amazing because a lot of play-by-play are owned by the teams. In many sports, people don't even know that. In many sports, they are. So it's a fine line, and I see how the athletes come to you. I see them off the record before games and how they talk to you.
Prayers.
They pray with you.
Yeah. That's my favorite part of the game day.
You have to build it up. I know I take pictures sometimes if I see it. I feel like a stalker, but send it to you because some of those moments are are undeniable.
Well, and if Talk North has a record book, it's guaranteed Paul Allen and Jim and Don just set the record for the longest goodbye.
Oh, there's no doubt
in the
about it.
history of the
Minnesota
podcast.
It's a Minnesota goodbye.
Right.
We did
well, this
20
is the
minutes
longest
of
one ever.
Yeah, we did 20
Well,
minutes
you
of
can't
talk.
ask me. You can't ask me. I mean, A, I have diatribes. B, we all have equity. And C, I'm a radio guy who likes to hear myself talk. And you're going to lay it out like, anything else you want to add, Paul? Yeah, let's get into the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. We can go there next, too. But Daryl Hall and John Oates, just to land the plane on the common thread, Daryl Hall and John Oates had an album called No Goodbyes.
Yep.
And that's kind of what this has been at the end. No
No
goodbyes.
goodbyes.
We're
What a
just
turn of a
refusing to say
phrase.
goodbye, you know?
Thank you, Paul Allen.
Thank you.
Allen,
That was
PA.
great.
God bless you guys.
Thanks
I
so much.
appreciate you.